Okay, so in the last video, we finished off creating this feature list component, and we talked about styling it out so that it was easy to edit for your editors. And then we said this next section is going to be like a blog reference, so you can kind of call out the latest blog post, something like that. Before we get to this section, we're going to actually just go ahead and build out the blog collection. And with that, we're actually going to build another collection called the authors. And so that's going to be sort of that blog and author relationship. We can talk about references and get into a little bit of that. So that being said, introducing LumLink Social, that's a blog post. We'll just jump into that and look at this content. So it's got a title, it's got an image, maybe it's sort of like a descriptive statement about this. This might be showing up in your SEO or your social links, sort of like a sub description of your post, and then the body of your post. And the author's got maybe a name and an image, and we'll probably leave it at that for now. As you can see, when you're on this page right now, we don't have a use Tina hook wired up. So on the left here, and we don't even have any data fetching yet. This is completely static, like the home page was before we got in there. When you don't have a use Tina hook, you don't see anything over here. There's nothing. Tina doesn't know about this content. So just a little pointer if you're ever like, where's the content? It's you probably aren't passing it through the Tina hook. So we'll go ahead and let me just put my resolution here. Jumping in here, we've got our page collection. We're going to have two new collections for this. So like I said, we're going to have, let's just call it post. And I like to give them singular names. You can give this like a plural name here, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because when you're querying and you're talking about it, you're usually referring to it in the singular form. So post and then path again. So this is going to be a different folder. I'm going to get in the post folder and then format again. Whoops. Markdown. And okay, so we're going to just start with a title and maybe let's actually just start with the title and then we'll do the reference as well. So this is going to be author and label author. And actually that needs a type. This is a string. And this is going to be a reference type. And when you give it a reference type, you have to also say what collections it can be referring to. And we're going to say it's going to refer to the author's collection. I'm just going to copy this and create an author. This is kind of annoying. It's waiting. Get a little bit higher here. Okay, so author name. This is going to go into the authors folder. And actually, a lot of time I'll make the folder path plural. And this will be just name. And let's do an image here. All right. So we've got a blog post, and it's going to have a title, and it's going to have an author, and the author is going to have a name and an image. And actually, why don't we just go ahead and complete these collection types, because that way we don't have to go back. Description. And that was a string. We'll probably do keep that as just like a string instead of rich text. Image, and then body. So this is going to be the bulk of the content for. That's going to be a rich text type. One quick thing, when we're doing Markdown, we're working with our content here, everything is going to be in the front matter. And you can use a JSON format when these files are saved to their to their actual files. You can see here we've got sort of this block section. This is for the home page. We got a title, and then we got blocks, and then we've got an array of blocks. There's nothing in the body here, and a lot of times you might not have that. But if you're using Markdown, and especially if you're bringing your Markdown from maybe another site builder or some sort of static thing where you had a lot of body content and you want that to be used, you can just specify what field represents the body. And so that can be a rich text field. It can also be a string. But so if I say this is the body field, then the body text is going to get saved to the body of the Markdown. And if you're using JSON as a format in your collection, that doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. So yeah, we got the body field and we've got all the fields that we talked about. Let me just check. And I think authors has an image and a name for now. That's probably enough. So one thing when you're kind of building out content, and if you're kind of like, I don't even have any content that I can work with, a lot of times it's just a little bit easier to go ahead and just create that content manually, and that way you can just sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit easier sometimes when you're just getting started. So I'm just going to copy some content into here, and I don't even have an author yet. Really, when you're just building stuff out for the first time, sometimes it's a bit awkward to kind of have that chicken and egg situation where you don't have content and you're trying to figure out your data fetching. And so a lot of times I'll just jump over into the Tina sort of CMS section. You can see this is non-visual. Right now it's non-visual also because we haven't set up the router in our configuration, which we'll talk about in a second. So what was this called? Introducing Llama Link. You can see I've already done this. So that's been saved, and actually let's add an image. Forgot about that. Okay, actually I'm going to jump into image configuration real quick. The way Tina works is you can bring a media provider, and out of the box you can just use your get back to media. And so the way that looks is there's the media configuration here, and Tina. And I've already set this up. So we've got a public folder here, and in here we've got some images. So you can, if you look at our build config, it's going to be very similar. We're basically saying, hey, our framework has a public folder, and then for media root, that's just going to be a blank string. Basically, we could have like an uploads folder in here or something like that if you want to sort of namespace your configuration. But for now, we're just going to do this. And this tells Tina that's where you can pull images from. You can also bring your own custom store. We have integrations for Cloudinary, S3, DigitalOcean, and you can build your own. So those tend to work pretty well. And really, when your site gets larger and you've got a lot of media, that's really what you probably should do. But out of the box, getting your site started, local media works pretty well, and it's a really convenient way to set your site up. So with that being said, I should have some images here. Got some random images that I just kind of threw together. And so the post's looking good. We don't have an author yet. So again, getting content started, easiest to just go ahead and go in here and create some stuff. Okay, so I think I had some names in here that I will use just for sake of using them. In here, we've got an authors folder. I've already added some images just to get things going. Michelle, and I don't need the file extension there. Let me go ahead and create all these, and I'll probably just kind of skip through here. Okay, so I've created a few authors just to kind of demonstrate. You probably have a lot more than that in the real world, but so when you do that, you can select from the author, and there you go. Okay, so I've got some content, I've got an author, and I've got a blog post. Good to go. So again, going back into our data fetching here, we've got a blog list page. This is going to be the sort of blog index like we showed. We'll go back into our site. We've got this section ready to go, but let's actually just jump directly into the blog post section. In here, we've got a slug, and so that's going to be a parameter that we're going to use in our data fetching. We're going to obviously want to fetch the appropriate blog post. And one thing I did here was the post name introducing llamalink.md. So that's going to map to the URL. So in scenarios where we've got introducing llamalink here, that's going to be the param, and that's exactly what we want. So our data is going to look like, let's see, what did we do here? It's going to look pretty much the same as what we did in our data fetching for our page. We've got a client that we've entered, got generated. And then now you'll see the auto-generated client automatically updates. We're running our TinaCMS dev server, so that just picked up changes. And you'll see it if you're logging, if you're looking at your terminal, you'll see Tina config change detected, rebuilding, indexing. So that's going to also index automatically new Markdown files that show up in your folders. When that's complete, it'll sort of restart the server. And so, okay, so we've got a post, and that's just going to take a relative path. And here in this example, we know that our file's in Markdown, and then we know that our param's going to have a slug, and that's really all there is to that. And we're just going to pass that in. So if we look back to, just for reference here, our page component, we had these set up with some properties. We knew what kind of data was passing through, and this is where we wired up our use Tina hook. So blog page going to be the exact same story. Did I copy that well? Okay. And instead of page query, it's going to be post query. And everything else should really be the same. So copying here, again, this time we've got some blog post data, and we'll just import the use Tina hook. And so now we've got our data. It's type safe. It knows about the shape, and we'll just start to pass that through like we have. So data post. And if we look at our featured reading, we actually already have a post here. So we'll just swap that out. So the let's actually just call that post instead of spreading it. So the post takes a post, and that's going to be the post type. And that might be a little bit off. Let me just check that. Okay, so now we've got post, and it's not happy because we didn't give it that. Okay, so now actually this is the wrong type. This is the type of the actual post itself, but a lot of time you just want to grab whatever your query was, so post query, and then we'll just step through it and get the post. And so our TypeScript is happy. We're over here in our featured reading, and we're passing through the blog posts. If we look at this page, use state only works in client components. Okay, I forgot to do that. Okay, so it's happy. Just move this over here. The way this is set up is this featured reading is actually just a component, and it is just this section here, but it could also be used in other places. There's another section here where the body of our content's being used. And let's see, what kind of image is this? Oh, okay, so then behind this, we've got another, we're kind of blurring whatever the actual image is. So if we look at the post, okay, so here, so this is kind of doing a little blur background. No, not too hard. Okay, so now we've got the body of the blog post, and we're just going to do our Tina Markdown here. What was it? Data. Data post body. Okay, so in this scenario, we're using Tailwind. So we just added this prose element, and these components just didn't really need to be styled. If we do want to style it, it's again, same story. Just bring your components for when you're doing the render. That's where you can make that decision. So our blog post section is looking pretty good. Content, you can see updating at our data Tina fields, and we should be good to go here. Featured reading, I'm going to add data Tina field. And it's going to be linked to the image. Oh, sorry, this is the author. This is the image. Okay, so moving along, we can kind of select these items, and you can see they're popping up here. Change the image out, change the content out. Real quick, I'm going to make that content, that description section, a text area, so it's a little bit easier to work with. Okay, a little bit better. And then we'll wire up the data Tina field for the blog post. Post. All right. Okay, so the blog post itself is looking pretty good. We don't have an author image here that was popping up, so I broke that. Broke that when I deleted the post here. So post doesn't actually have that information. One thing with Tina, when you're doing when you're sort of building links up, you'll probably a lot of the time want to use this sys property, and under here is some information like the file name. Breadcrumbs is basically if you've got a blog post and say it's 3 folders deep, that's just going to be the breadcrumbs for each folder. So a lot of time building out the links for a blog post, you'll use the breadcrumbs. So if we were to look up here, if introducing llama link blog post was inside, articles inside my blog section, then the breadcrumbs would be articles. It would be an array of strings, articles introducing llama link. And so that's what the URL would reflect. And we would need to change our routing with next for that. But I usually just use breadcrumbs there. And so that's the link for it. Not that we're using it here, but we will be using it in another place. Okay, so now for the author, the value here is not image URL, it's image. And so that's the author, that's the actual author in our section here. So this is kind of where we get into really one of my favorite parts about Tina is you can start to move through references pretty seamlessly in the visual editing setup. So post author. So in this scenario, data Tina field is going to link to the select dropdown for the post author. So when I click on the author's image here, I can see Amy, and I can change that. That's going to be Adam. And I can go to bin, and I can change the author there, and it just sort of works. The other thing that I can do is I can actually edit Amy, and I can go and say, oh, that's actually the wrong image, whatever. And I can change that, and that'll be that's changing the content for that actual author. And so with Tina, you can step through arbitrarily deep, whatever documents, whatever references you have, you can just sort of step down, change them. Maybe I spelled her name wrong, and I hit save, and that's going to save the author. Now, I've not actually made a save for the blog post here because that was through a reference. So when you're building out content, you can sort of move through your references, and your editors don't really have to know about the structure of your content on the back end this way. I mean, in this scenario, blog post and author, that makes sense. They're sort of like two different entities, but in a lot of scenarios, you might be sharing content through a reference. And as an editor, you don't really have to worry too much about that. You can edit them through there, or if I wanted to, I could style this out differently, and I could actually say, no, I want you to dig into the author itself. And then from there, I want you to get, let's see, author doesn't have, the author doesn't have the types on it, does it? Okay, so we're not sure that the author's there. So in this scenario, if post author, okay, so if the author is here, maybe you just want to let them change their image in this scenario. And so we're over here on the left, we're in our blog post section. If we click this item, we actually jump straight into the author and we can change the image. So as the developer, it's up to you to sort of manage what that feels like and what it should do. I think in a lot of cases, it kind of just makes sense to not really expose that level of depth, but there's all sorts of different scenarios you might want to use this for. So that's nested references and editable nested references. Pretty handy and really pretty powerful feature that you should definitely lean into as you're building out your site. Okay, so I've got this whole section is ready to go. The section here is broken now because I've got some components that are being shared, and now this isn't using data fetching anymore, or this isn't using static components anymore, it's using our data fetching. So we will have to build that out as well. I've only got one blog post. I'm going to create a couple more real quick, and we can use those. So if I go over to my blog list here, I think I had some, I've got some dummy blog posts here, so I'll use those. And we'll just share the same body content across these. Inspired interface. All right. Okay, so I've gone through, created the content that we're going to use on our blog section here. And now we just got to fetch the data. So for fetching data for the blog lists, we jump into our index page here, and we can pretty much start to copy stuff that we've been doing earlier. Import the client, and a result is going to be a post connection. So the connection is kind of just the list of blog posts that we want. There's all sorts of things you can do here. You can set up before and after and first and last to filter things. You can sort. You can filter through pretty much any attribute that you set up on your collection. So one thing that people do a lot of time is they'll have like a draft boolean, and that'll be like equals false, something like that. So you can make sure you can have sort of drafts built in. For this, we're just going to keep it simple and pass the result through. And this is going to be similar to the other stuff we've done. We've got a post connection result here. So for this, the post connection query, let's see what we did in these other places here. Variables and query string. Variables, we didn't use any variables here. The query string is just going to be the string. And these extra bits of info, again, these are for our use Tina hook. So while our actual content only cares about the data, we kind of need all that information. And then we're just going to pass the data through. And the blog list, use Tina. Let me make this a client page. Post connection query, query, not query string. Okay, so the use Tina hook's happy, blog list is still broken. We broke the blog list component because it was reusing the featured reading component here. This featured reading component now expects a post. So let's do featured post. And props here are going to be, let's see, what did I just do? Props here, post connection query. And with this, we're not exactly sure what the values are all going to be. This could be null. And that's just something that for GraphQL is that the types that we generate are going to be very, they're going to let you know, if we don't guarantee that the object is going to be there, then it'll be something you're going to have to do null checks on. So in this scenario, the connection query has these edges properties, and if you ever want to look at what the query's sort of shape looks like, the Tina admin has a GraphQL route, and you can take a look at that here. So these are all the generated queries that the client will make, and here we can take a look. In this scenario, we've got The post connection query's got the edges, and inside here there's a node property. And inside the node, if you look at it, it's just going to be the blog post shape. We need to figure out how to pass that blog post in. So we've got a featured post, and so this could be null. If we don't have a featured post, I don't know, we'll return nothing. Probably can make that better in the future, but for now, we'll just make our types happy, and that should make the site work. So we got this site running again. You can see this is actually our blog post that's the first one. We haven't actually passed this data through yet. So these are just our dummy data. So we're seeing post here. And actually, let's just do this again. Let's do post is going to be, could be null. All right, and then so post, this is like a hard-coded thing here. Just delete that. So we're using these posts, and again, these values could be null, and we're going to actually call this edge, and then we'll name post edge node. Like I said, the edge there could be null, and so if there's no post, again, as we're looping through these, we'll return null. We don't really expect that, but the post does not have a slug. It's got breadcrumbs, and we'll join those as I did earlier. Here's where we're actually linking up our posts. So this is important to get right. Basically, whatever we do here to build this URL, this is going to need to match our logic that we do here to, to fetch our data for the given blog post. So this is the link that we're building out. Post title, description. We don't have an image URL. We have an image. And then let's see how that looks. Okay, so just hit refresh just to make sure. I think this is the real data. I think if we go into the admin and then we go back through this, we should see, okay, yeah, we're ready to go with this content. It's already wired up because we're reusing this component over in our individual blog post section. But that's working. If we step back, refresh here. Tina, when you get a collection query, or when you have more than one query document on the page, Tina's just going to grab the first one it finds, and it's going to show that in the form. In this example, it grabbed the first blog post, which we happen to already have had edited. But if you click on the home here, you kind of go back, you can see we've got this blog post. It's got an author, and then we've got these other blog posts, and they've all got authors. So this is all from the post collection that we've queried for. So if we step in here and we edit this one and we change the author, we'll see that the author changes here in this section. But that's not really been wired up yet to be something we can click on. So let's do that now. We're in the blog post, and we got a feature here, data Tina field, and post title. This, like I said, this might not be really something you want to expose to the editor to edit, because you're on just this index page. You might say, I don't really want editors to be able to make changes here. I want them to have to, click through to go to the page to make edits. And I just dropped into that page there. But just to show kind of how things work, you can. And again, it's going to be the same structure. Tina doesn't really care about how deep you are in some sort of like nested hierarchy. You can pretty much control whatever you need to. So if you want to just say control the, if we have a post author, you can do that. And you could just drop right into the author's page and change their image here. And we'll do that. And we'll hit save, and that's going to be saved on this author. So Ben's photo was wrong before, let's say. And if we go into, this blog post, that's Ben now. So, and again, the blog post, this is already wired up. Step through the same things we just talked about. So yeah, these are all wired up. Everything is kind of working as expected. Our blog index section is just pulling the latest blog post, showing the latest one first, and you can click through and read the blog post. So jumping back into the home page here, we actually have this section down here which is not complete. So we'll do that. This is now going to be a reference, a block that's going to reference, so you can kind of choose what blog post to show there. So let's do that now. If we jump into our config, we can pick up where we left off. We had a features list, and let's just do a featured reading. And this is going to be the editor. We're going to make this sort of like a manual thing. The editor can basically step in and choose what blog posts they're going to, provide here. We'll do a little thing here. There's a label above the blog post, and that's just going to be a string. That is going to be this right here. So we can maybe call this. It's not always going to be the latest blog post. It might be something like, I don't know, announcement or something like that. So we have a label, and then we have featured post. And this is going to be a reference, and the collection is going to be able to pull in from the post collection. So the post collection has an author, but the page collection has a post in this way. So there's kind of just this hierarchy you can start to see starting to take shape. So with that being built, we've now got a featured reading section. We'll pull that down to the bottom, and let's say latest. Let's say announcements. And this is not working yet. As you can see, it's not been styled out, but make the content, and then jump in through here, and I've got a featured reading section now. Featured reading, and do my key again. Close it out. Okay, so this is showing up in the right spot. We can move it up here. We can move it down. That's good. Now we just need to sort of bring this thing to life. So one of the things we did here, what did we have? We had a features, which was just a page blocks feature list. This is going to be page blocks featured reading. Maybe not the best name there, but good enough. So in this section, we've got label, and then we got a featured post here. Featured post is going to be a reference. It may not be there, so that's really something we'll watch out for. Latest here is the value we had. Label. Okay, announcement. Okay, that's good. And let's go ahead and just make it editable. Label. Okay, now you can click it, make your announcement, good to go. And this section, this is going to be the posts, because I know for this one at least, I actually do have a reference. So featured post, that's going to have a title, maybe, and then we did a description here. For this reason, I mean, it looks a lot better when there's like a dedicated amount of content that you're, consciously keeping short, so you can keep it brief. Okay, so that's been wired up. You can't actually edit this right now, and again, as a developer, this is your responsibility to sort of, decide what is editable, how much of the nested reference is editable. But you can sort of configure it as much as you'd like. What we'll do here is we'll actually make this entire section something you can click on, and that's going to be featured posts. So actually, let's narrow it a little bit there. It doesn't look very good. Okay, and you can drop that in here so that you can click on this and you can change the author, or sorry, you can change the post, but notice that the author was something that I have not updated yet. That was just hard coded in here as well. So featured post. And we could have an author, and if we had an author, we could have their image. If we don't, let's fall back to nothing. Probably not the best, but okay, so everything's wired up. This section is complete, and for the most part, the content on our site is fully editable. There's some links here and things like that that are not yet editable, but you can pretty much take this and start to look at this in a way of it's the site's got this ability to build these kind of pages, like page builder type thing. You've got a home section or a home page, and you can have as many blocks as you want. Maybe we have an about page here, and we'll have another sort of page builder type of flow. But then you've got your sort of more, content heavy stuff like a blog post, and that's going to be, really designed for long form content. So yeah, in the next video, we'll close it out and talk about editing the navigation, and that's going to be the header and the footer, and that'll be something that most sites need and will make for an interesting topic.